Hello quilters, it's Marianne from fontanaoriginals.com, and here's another Quilts of Valor quilt. I really like making these. I just feel like it's such a good thing. What I've made this time, I am calling it Stars in the Storm. And it's similar to my Snail Storm, which is the Storm at Sea. And that had the snail's trail. And this is a storm at sea, but I have square and a square blocks in the middle. And then I've highlighted some of these sashing, which is the shapes 13 and 14, where you use the triangle and a square. And these square pieces are the points that are being made for the gold and the blue stars. It's easy to sew, but there is a lot of pieces and a lot of cutting. So let me just kind of give you a sense. These are what we're going to make. We're going to make a 6-inch finished, I call it a triple square block because it's square and a square and a square, not to be confused with a square on point. We're going to be making, these are triangle in a square blocks. There's 2 sewn together. So for every one of the sashing, you have to make 2 triangle blocks and sew them together on the white side. And then there's ones with gold, ones with blue and gold, and one with blue and gold in the other direction. And then we have, these are 3, by the way, these are 6 inches, 3 by 6, and these are all 3-inch finished. These are squares on point. And then this is a square and a square and a square, which is the identical block construction as this one, only it's 3 inches instead of 6. And that's how we get Stars in a Storm. Let me show you how to piece it together. The first shape we're going to cut are going to be the large 6-inch finished squares that will go, that are the main blocks, and then the rest is really sashing. So we're going to make 30 of these, and this consists of, from the 6-inch cube, we're using shapes 1, 3, and 4. If you're manually cutting it, your shape 1 is a 3-inch finished square, 3.5-inch cut. Your shape 4 is a 1/4 square triangle, which is also a 3-inch finished 1/4 square triangle, but that gets cut at 4 1/4 square, and then you cut it. And the last one, which is a 3-inch finished half square triangle, which you would cut at 3 7/8 inch square, and then cut it in half. And you need to make 30 of these blocks. Let's sew. I always like to keep a copy of the block I'm working on nearby that I can refer to, because I'm notorious at sewing things wrong. So I've tried to come up with every trick I can to eliminate some of my obvious and easy to make mistakes. So I'm going to start with shape 1, which is the 3.5-inch cut square, and I'm going to sew the 1/4 square triangles to it. And the best way to do it is to sew up one side, chain piece them all, and then sew down the other, because it actually helps maintain the shape of the square. Now, if you were to sew here, and then sew here, and then sew here, and then sew here, you could make this square wonky. So the best way to do it is to just go up one side and chain piece them all at one time. Oh, I've got a piece of thread cut there. And what I would simply do is, you would be making 30 blocks. I'm only making 4 for my demonstration. And regardless of how many you're making, you really should make a test block first, always and forever. And in many cases, make it out of a piece of scrap fabric that you don't necessarily like, just in case you did it wrong. You will not waste any of your really good fabric. So I'm just doing 4. This is the 3rd one. And as you can see, I'm using a 1/4-inch foot. Fabric is always placed right sides together. And if you have the AccuQuilt, your squares should be lining up perfectly. If you're manually cutting it, your tails will hang over the end, and just make sure they hang over evenly. So once I'm done chain piecing the one side, I will cut it off and then just simply turn it around without separating the squares, and sew the other side up. And I always like to match both ends together to make sure I have the block centered, regardless of how you're cutting it. And I like to stop with my needle down on top of the fabric. It keeps the foot up slightly, which then will allow me to slide this under and continue sewing. least for mine. You'd be doing 30. And that's it. And just cut it off. Oop. Just cut it off. And then I'm going to just take a pair of scissors and snip them very simply and go down, and you would do them all. Now, I do not press with a hot iron. I simply fold it back, and in the case of this, I would always fold it to the outside. So this is the way it will be, and then I will go ahead and add the other sides. And again, centering the block. I like to put my foot on the fabric. It keeps it from eating it many times. Stop while I'm still there. Quickly fold this one up. Fold this one down. Place it in the correct position. Put it under the foot gently, see? Go slow. And it catches. And the reason is because it's thick. There's a lot of seams here. You know, you have the fold overs. You have actually 3 layers here and 1 here. So it's going to be just a little heavier. And it may go a little slower through your machine. All right, so let's just do the 2 for now. Put those aside. And just like I did before, I will turn this around. These have been finger pressed down. There we go. Here's, whoop, right sides together. I've done that often. That's probably one of my biggest errors. I sew it wrong side. And just sew. And it's the same thing if you're chain piecing. I'll just drop that thing on top of the other one. Lay it flat. Match this up here. Push it under the foot. Get it started. Check this side. Oh, a little wonky. Sometimes just picking up your foot eliminates that problem. And let's look. Oops. And there is the first part of our square in a square in a square 6-inch finished block. I will cut these apart, and then we're going to add the half square triangles. Give it a little clip here. Now, as I said, I'm making 4, but you don't need to see me sew 4 together. It's all basically the same. So here I am. I've not pressed anything again, just using my fingers. Now I'm going to switch, and I'm going to get those large white square triangles. And I can sew it just very simply across here. I'm going to match it up. I like to match the bottom and then bring the top up because I have greater control, I think, and then I will put the entire assembly underneath with the foot pedal down on top, and I will sew. Now I'm actually holding this piece because that's where the seam is here, and a lot of times it will shift, so I'm actually setting it to here, making sure it's correct, and then holding this because sometimes when you sew, the fabric can go out or in on you and drift a little. And I want to nail that point. So let's do another one. And because I'm very weird about things, this one had large stars. And this one has small stars. I'm trying to match the small and large. But normally if I were sewing, it's all white on white. I don't care. And anything that's like a white on white, if you're using, is perfect. These happen to be different size square stars. Okay, so that's 2 down the one side. We'll turn it around exactly the same process. And I'm going to get my small stars for this. Nobody but I will ever notice. It's my quilt, so. Now get it started. I always use the needle as my pin. All right, let's get this one. Make sure this was nice and flat. Get ourselves another piece. Only I'm going to go sneak over here and get one of my large stars. Here, let's see, match it up over there. There we go. All right, slide it under the foot. Get this piece back. Okay, let's look. All right, so here we are. Oh, that's a pretty good point. I like that. See how nice that looks? And there. Okay, let's see the other one. Oh, a little bit closer, but you know, you can press it. And this is not a competition. This should be something enjoyable. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as you get close and it looks reasonable and it fits, you're good. No sense in overcomplicating it. It's supposed to be a joy to sew, not a labor, which actually is one of the reasons I like the AccuQuilt cutting dies, because it really, it minimizes my error rate in cutting, I guess. Let's put this, see, I'm matching these two sides up here. Can you see that, just the way they angle? Now, if you were cutting it manually, you would still have the point, so it would just overlap. Now, I did not cut these apart before, but I will do that now, so I can chain piece the second one. Here it is. And again, finger press, finger press. Get some stars going, right sides together. Put it here, I get it under the foot, just because it is a bulky. And I go slow because it's going through a lot of layers over there. And sometimes the fabric likes to shift a lot. And again, as you notice, I don't use pins. I don't really think it's necessary. I think the pins just slow you down. And I always like to do things quickly. But I always want them to look great, so somewhere in there is a balance. Okay, put it down, get started, match up this side, pull the back, so make sure it's straight. And then I just drop the other one on top here, fix the little seams just for a second. Right sides together, under the foot. Get started. Straighten this out. And here we have two of the finished 6-inch square in a square in a square block. Pretty good points, fast and easy. Here's the other one. Now I will take these and press these all out this way, because when I am piecing with sashing and with blocks, I do like to make sure that the seams are pressed down perfectly before I try to assemble it. So make 30 of these, and then we're going to work on sashing. The next section we're going to work on are going to be the sashing strips that go across and go down. And we're going to be working on this one, which is a 3x6, which are 2 triangle in a square blocks sewn together in the middle. So these are the 3 colorways we need to do. And for every sashing 3x6-inch finished sashing piece, you will need 2 half square triangle blocks. There are 3 colorways. The first one, they're all gold. So this is shape 13. And this is shape 14, and if you're manually cutting it, each of these finishes a 3-inch square, so it's a 3-inch triangle in a square block. So you will make 2 for every 3x6 sashing piece, and you need 29 sashing pieces, so there'll be 58 of them. And basically you're just going to sew 2 together, and you need a right and a left shape 14 with a triangle in the middle, or these are also known as half rectangles. So when you manually cut them, you'll either use the templates, or you will cut a rectangle and then cut it in half as you would for a half square triangle, only would be a half rectangle. So you will need 2 of these, and then once they're put together, you will turn around and sew them together this way. And if you want to get perfect points and perfect matching pieces, you will press one side with the gold seams in and the other side with the gold seams out. But we'll talk about that when I sew it. The next one is going to be a blue and half gold sashing strip, which consists of one gold one, so it's a white triangle with two gold half rectangles, or a white triangle and two blue half rectangles. And you will make 20, so you'll make 20 blue and 20 gold, and then you will turn around and sew them together like that. The last one we're going to make is also blue and gold, but only the blue are on one side and the gold are on the other, so they have to be sewn opposite like this. So you will sew them together, and then you will turn them like this and sew them together. Let's just, yeah. There you go. Okay, so now I know this shows it blue and gold, and that's gold and blue. Well, you just turn it upside down and it's correct, because you could just sew it either way. And again, I'm going to sew one side in and one side out to get the perfect points. Now this you're going to need 22. So you're actually going to make 22 with the gold on the right side and 22 with the gold on the left side. And that's how we make our sashing strips. Cutting directions for these blocks do give you the cutting for all of the blocks that you need at one time, but I am actually going to sew them separately because I get confused too easily, and if I have to remember how many gold and how many have blue and how many have this, so I'm just going to do the gold ones first, which makes it simple and easy. And anytime I'm sewing, I'm going to keep my block visible somewhere in the side so I can look at it. But to start out with, I need my triangles. And in this case, I'm just making 2 just to show you how to do it. And then we have to make sure our pieces line up like this. So I'm going to just flip this over. And if you've cut it with the AccuQuilt, your little corners and your seams are going to match perfectly. And if not, you will have a little overhang, but that's okay. Just center it. And I'm going to just sew up one side. Easy as that. Now note, you're always sewing on the long sides. This is not an equilateral triangle. This is an isosceles. What does that mean? It means the 2 sides are the same length and the other is different. So this is a isosceles triangle. It finishes at 3 inches. And again, I'm going to lay it down. And then I would just simply chain piece all the pieces I need for this and do the one side first. And then I would just turn them around. I'm clipping. In this case, you have to clip the corners simply because the shapes, you're sewing at an angle. You're not sewing straight like a square, so you really have to. So I'm going to put both of these, and I'm going to press these seams. Let's see. I'm gonna just let them all go one way, and then when I'm ready to piece them, I'll flip them back and forth because it's easier, and it's too hard for me to always remember which direction everything goes in. So now I'm gonna put this the opposite way, and I'm gonna start at the opposite end and place that right on point there on the point. And this one, see how nicely it lines up? And put my foot down and sew. Again, I like to stop with my foot pedal still on the fabric. And I always tend to go like this because I'm always sure I'm sewing it wrong. And I'll set it up there, come back with my finger. That looks really good. Put it underneath and keep going. So there are my 2 pieces. So I could now make the one gold and white sashing strip. And so I will basically have to fold them together on the wide side, which is here. And then this is where it really determines how you get that perfect seam. I'm going to leave these 2 with the seams facing the gold, and I'm going to force these to turn in with the seams facing the white. Why? Because then it helps me to kiss the seams together and get perfect points. Now I'm a little concerned about this bulk. When I fold this, it's going to be a disaster. So I think what I'll do is sew over to here, and instead I'm going to let this one lay flat, and I'm going to flip the other one upside down, because then at least I have this flat here and it's not so bulky, because if I tried to fold this and this over, I would never get a perfect point. let's see, I'll show you better here. Oh. So these are the two pieces, and look, I want you to see how they match up. I don't think you could ask for it to be closer than that. And the reason being is I have these going in opposite direction. As you saw, I made a decision while we were doing this, and I ended up doing one in on each side and one out just so that I could keep these points nailed beautifully. And I think it works well. So that's the gold one. Let's do the next color. On this one, we have one blue and white 3-inch finished triangle in a square and one gold and white finished 3-inch triangle in a square. So I'm going to make one gold and one blue for each sashing strip. Now, obviously, as we've talked about before, you're making 20 of each of these, so you're going to piece them together, just chain them together. I'm right now just going to make one of each, just to show you how to the colorways go together. Put that there, put this here, under my foot pedal. Again, same sewing. Trim them apart. Push this to the side, turn it around, do the gold. Again, I always like to go like this and then turn it over because I'm always paranoid. I sometimes have trouble with the matching up when you turn it over, how it looks, if you know what I mean. Let it stop there, and I'll do the blue one. There's no reason why you can't sew different colors. It's all the same sewing. Very simple. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to put these two together. And just for now, just push this over. And I'm not steaming it or anything, so it's really easy to flip them back and forth when you need to. And I think it's well worth the results you get. So I'm going to take one, put it on top of the other. It doesn't matter which way you do it because you can turn the block as you need it. And in this case, I'll put the bottom one down just because it's always easier to sew when it pushes this way if it's down. And I just need to kiss my seam. So let's talk about that. So here the seam is going down. Here the seam is going up. And I can just take this and actually slide it. And you can feel it kiss, right? The two seams just kiss. It's a good thing. And I'll take a couple stitches. Then I'm going to see this one is going in, so I'm going to make this one go this way so I still get those pretty points. And lo and behold, this one's going to go down, and again, I'm going to pull that over until those seams are nestled together right there, and then sew. The biggest mistake I think beginner quilters make is when they get to the end, they tend to pull, and you don't get a straight line. That's very important. So let's look again, see if it's repeatable. Oh, I think I did good again, look. Right? I'm happy. That one's off more, a little teeny tiny bit. But you know what? Not everybody's vision's that good. You'll never see it. So that's the half blue and half gold. And we're making 22. Well, actually, that's this one here. 20, I'm sorry. We're making 20 of these. So I have that one. And then the last one is a half and half, which means we need one on the right and one on the left. A blue on the right, in this case. And then we need a blue on the opposite side. So, let me put this away. And I'm going to cover this one and just sew it in. Now, the thing to remember when you're doing this is they have to be opposite because they're mirror images. So if I've done that one blue, I have to do this one gold. And if actually you're chain piecing them, if you want to get really, you know, quick, you could chain piece them like this. I wouldn't recommend it. I usually end up doing something wrong. Okay, so this is the one side. And then we just turn them over. So there's our one. Here's Here's our other piece it goes, and in this case, I will always try to sew on a flat side as opposed to a seam side if I can help it. And I will use my needle as a pin. I don't use pins. I find they just get in my way. I stick myself. I get blood on the fabric. It's a mess. And so this one, and we'll go this way. Make sure it still matches. It does. All right, cut it off. Cut them in half. Push out the seams a little, just so I can nest them together. Okay, now let's look if I did this right. Yeah, see that? The rolls are on the top, blue are on the bottom, or the other way around. It's all the same. So I just need to put them together. So the blue goes to the blue, and the gold goes to the gold. And as we did before, we're going to put the bottom seam down. See, I'm just pushing it down. I'm forcing it down. I could say manhandling, I guess I should say. I'm woman handling it. There we go. And I'll slide this one in. Yay. That's it. It's kissing. And put it on the foot pedal. Take 2 or 3 stitches. Reline it up over here. Make sure that one's going down. This one should be going up. Kiss those little seams. And sew. See, the thing in kissing the seams is they force them to be as close as they could humanly possibly be, and you get really good seams. That one's a little off, but you'll forgive me, right? Generally speaking, you know, being with the camera and stuff, it's hard to maintain sometimes things because I've got the camera between you and me and the sewing machine, so I really can't see what I'm doing. But I think all in all, that's not bad. I am not going to rip that out. I'm happy. So those are the sashing strips, and this one you're going to make 22. So you're going to make 22 with the blue on the right and 22 with blue on the left. And those are the sashing strips. The sashing strips are all done, so now we're going to do the sides. These are the cornerstones that go around the side, and they're not the same as the cornerstones that go in the middle. This is a triple square, just like this one is. These are all squares on point. You're going to make 4 corners right here, these little ones, 4 corners. That's this one white, so that it gives you that swoopy look around the side. Then all of the rest of them on the sides and around the edge are going to be 2 blue and 2 white. A square on point is not the same size as a cut square of the same size. These are 3-inch finished blocks. This is shape 6 in the AccuQuilt cutting system on the 6-inch cube, and this is shape 5. If you are manually cutting it, your square on point is cut at 2 5/8 inches, and your small half square triangle is cut at 2 3/8 inches. You will make 4 of the ones with the blue, and you will make 18 with the 2 blue and the 2 white. And just to show you, these are my fabrics that I'm using. It's the same I've been using throughout, and I'm going to piece them that way. We're going to sew them exactly the way you sew a square and a square. You're going to sew the 2 sides and then the opposite sides, and we'll do the same for that. The side square on points have the 2 blue, the 2 white, as we said. It's make 18, and they're 3 inches finished. So I'm going to actually start with my red squares in the middle, and I'm going to look at this, and so I'm going to start with the white, and I do blue. So I'm going to do white on the one side, flip it, and do blue on the other. I find it easier if I just focus on one thing at a time. If I try to think too far ahead, I usually make a mistake. Classic. All right, so just set it down, put on it. And again, you will be making all of them and string piecing them together. I'm making 4 right now, because it's a good, I find these numbers that I do, that I make the samples, are good for me to put sections of the quilt together to make sure they are right shape, they fit, and everything like that. Quilts are made from these quilts that I design, and my local Quilts of Valor in here in Delaware, Legacy Group, makes these quilts. In fact, this one was requested because one woman's going to make it all by herself. She's going to make the whole thing. So what I will do is, once they're made, I'll change the pictures in my pattern to show what was actually made with it. So it's a lot of fun. So I said I'm going to do one side white and then the other side blue. So I'm just going to turn them around. And now I'm going to go get some blue ones. And just place them, centering it. One, right sides together, always. Two, three, and four. And if you were doing it, you'd be up to 18, you would cut them off, and then we're going to separate them all. And again, I'm just going to use quick finger pressing. Now let's go back and look at our little block here. This is where I always get in trouble. And I'm going to do white here. So I can do the blue here. And I'm going to do the white here, which means the blue goes first. Okay, so now I know I could do the blue here. Set that down, get it under the foot, get it started. Then I can come across and match this up. And this is pretty much the way I do it. I'm working at my normal speed. Not too fast, not too slow, but you can sew a lot of stuff pretty quickly. If you have a little process. So I kind of have my little system, I guess, as we all do. And I hope you like these. I find these are time-saving. Again, started. Come across, match it up, hold it in place. There we go. And one more. Okay, the blue, right? Make sure that end is down. Put it here. Started. Give it a little tug. Okay, we got one more side. See, that doesn't take long at all. I've been on this 4 minutes, and we have almost 4 blocks completed. Isn't that cool? All right, so right side. Now, I'm not checking this one because it's the only color I have left. And if it's wrong, well, then I've got more than just this one side problem. And it's quick. Lay it down. Right like that. If you don't think it's going under the foot, just pick up your foot. Not your foot, your presser foot. Okay, I might as well finish. There's only 2 more. And I will run out of fabric anyway. Oops. Yeah, I'm picking up my presser foot because it seems to be sliding. Oh, that's actually perfect. And the last one. Okay, right sides together. I talk to myself too when I quilt, so this is perfect. I can video and talk to you, and no one thinks it's strange. Oh, that one's getting stuck. I'll just pick up my foot, move over. All right, so that is the 3-inch finished square on point with the 2 blue sides. And I've made a few of them. Yeah, they look fine. They're all fine. We'll just cut them apart. We'll press them. And so let's see. There you go. This is technically how it goes. 3-inch, oops, square on point. With 2 blue. And then you're going to do one more, as we talked about. And it's just going to be 3 blue and a white, you make 4 of these. I don't think I have to show you how to do it. Let's go to the last block. The last block we need to make is going to be this 3-inch finished square and a square and a square. And they're all the same color. They're blue, red, then white. And we're going to make 20 of them. And they are all the center cornerstones. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's 25 times 4. So we need 20. And here it is, laid down. Now just to kind of, it's a little more difficult than the others, but it's the same exact sewing as we did on the larger shape, only it's half the size. The center one is shape 2 from the 6-inch cube, which is a 2-inch cut shape, 2-inch cut square. The next, the red, is going to be cut from an 8-inch cube, and it's shaped 12.1 half square triangle. And if you're manually cutting it, you're going to cut 1 7/8 inch squares and cut them in half for 1-inch finished, technically half square triangle. And then the outside is going to be the 6-inch cube, shape 5, which is a 2 3/8 inch cut square, which is cut in half. And the sewing is exactly the same as the first. I'll just do one to show you, but other than the fact that it's smaller, it's no different than the original 6-inch shape we made in the very first block. Working with the smaller pieces, but otherwise the sewing is the same. Again, you'll center it. I'm just going to do one to show you quickly. Put the other one here. Simple. They're just smaller. The only real difference is the seam allowance is much less forgiving when you're making smaller blocks, because you have to really be right on, because a small error in seam you can make up for if you're doing an 8-inch block, but you've only got a little bitty one. You've got a lot less room to make it up. Sorry that I was struggling there for a little bit. And so I'm just going to finger press these open. I'm going to put another one here. Just like that, get it under my foot, sew it, get another one, put it on the other side. Again, I'm finger pressing. Now as I finished each of the blocks, actually I haven't pressed any of them yet, I'm going to go ahead and press them all now. I'd rather do it, I find it's more efficient. I can just sit there and press them all at one time instead of turning the iron off and on or having it shut off on me. So I'll just go ahead and once I'm done with these, so there's our little first section. Okay, that's the square. And then we got our red and blue. And I'm going to add the white. So let's put these aside. I have more, but I just really want to show you doing one. And I'm going to line it up just like that. After a while, you get used to how much space you have on each side, so you can kind of calculate it with your eye. But in the beginning, check both sides. That, again, making sure right sides together. I'll go to the opposite side, just push that corner in a little. Now, you see this is off. I'm not concerned. You know why? Because there's a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and that's exactly what it's for you to be able to pick up the little bit of imperfections in your sewing. Okay, so here and here, and let's see this one face down. I'm going to kind of look to check on this. Yeah, that looks good. And the last side. Let's see how I did. Okay, and that is the square in a square in a square block, 3-inch finished, and you'll make 20. Let's go press all our blocks. So hopefully you finished all your blocks. I'm ready to start assembling. The easiest way to assemble this is to do 2 different rows. The first one is going to be a block row, and that's going to consist of the 6-inch finished square and a square and a square, and some of the 3x6 half square triangle sashing pieces, and that will depend on the colorway. So the pattern lays it out and shows you how many rows. You have to do a total of 6 different rows and how the placement goes. For the block rows, the sashing will always be put with the 6-inch side against the 6-inch block and sewn vertically, and you will do the 6 different rows. For the other version, which is the sashing rows, you will do 7 different sashing rows, and this time all of the sashing strips will always be horizontal regardless of the color. Now the other thing that you have to worry about is going to be the square-on points, which only go around the perimeter and the outside of the quilt, so they'll only be on the first row, the last row, and on the ends of all the others. The square setting squares that are in the middle are the square on square on square, which are the 3-inch version that are similar to the ones you did here. So I'm going to just lay out a few and show you, but if you follow the diagrams, you should have no problem whatsoever, and all the blue stars we put in the exact perfect place. Let's look for a moment at the row assembly for the blocks. And as I said, we're using the 6-inch block. And let's look at row 1. The first one will have the blue on the side, so you will lay it this way. Let's take these out of here. And you will lay your block here and sew them together. The next one is this way. And you will lay it together, sew it to the block, and add another block. And this is just going to be the same assembly the whole time. So let's look now at the third one. So the third one's actually going to be the gold. So you will then put the gold at the end here and continue. So let's look for a moment. So you did the one gold, then you put another block, a second gold, another block, and then you will take one of these pieces, but only now it will be in the opposite direction with the blue pointing down, and then you will do another end block, which will be this. These are the end blocks which are going to border your quilt. And you'll just continue sewing the rows together, matching up the colorways according to the chart. You will use all of the 6-inch square and a square and a square blocks in this section. You will use none of the 3x3 pieces. They will all be used in the sashing. When we get to the sashing, we're going to pay attention because all of the blocks with the blue will go along the top, around the sides, and up. And that actually creates a frame for us. So let's look at the first row. The first row of these, we are using the square on point. You've made 4 with blue pieces, and they will only be in the corners of the 4 pieces. So there'll be 2 for this row 1 and 2 for row 7. Simply, you will just place 1. Now in this case, if you notice, all the half square triangle sashing are going to be with the 2 blue on the top and the gold at the bottom. So you will lay them like this. And as you set them, and the rest of these square on point pieces will have 2 white and 2 blue, only the corner one would help if you could see it. Only the corner one will have the 3. So you'll have the 3, you'll have a sashing strip with the blue on top, another one, you put another sashing strip, you put another one of these, and you'll work your way across until you get to the last, and then you will end it with another of the 3-sided blue ones, making sure it corners it so that you get the frame in the corner. The rest of the rows are pretty much self-explanatory. Just follow the charts. You use the square on point on the border only. All the inner blocks that you see here along the way on all the other sashing ones are going to be, oh, I gotta find them. Here they are going to be the white ones that you made, which is the square and the square and the square, the 3x3 block, which is the same assembly as the 6-inch one was. And these will go in rows 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 as the center pieces. You have 16 of them. And that's all you have to do. And as soon as you're finished, you just sew the quilt together using sashing row 1, then row 1, then sashing 2, and just follow the numbers all the way down, and then you will have this beautiful quilt when you're finished. I hope you like it. So I hope you enjoyed making Stars in a Storm. Now keep in mind that 20% of the purchase price of all of the Quilts of Valor patterns that I design are donated back to Quilts of Valor annually. And anyone can make a quilt for Quilts of Valor. And even if you buy the pattern for your own personal use, you're still helping the cause because we are giving that money back to them. But you don't have to know anybody. You don't have to be a member of a guild. You don't have to be connected to anyone. You can make a Quilt of Valor and donate it if you like. Just go to the Quilts of Valor Facebook page or online and reach out to them. You can check out their site, and it has the specifications and the sizes that you need to make. And make a Quilt of Valor for someone. And if not, buy a pattern and you'll still be helping and make something pretty for someone. Thank you very much for watching. And if you see a veteran, please thank him or her for their service. Have a great day.